Hey everyone, good morning. Happy Friday. Although this could be any time that you're watching this. I am super excited to talk to you today. Y'all, if you're joining live, like drop a little comment below so I can give you a shout out. Sometimes I see them, sometimes I don't, because, Facebook. But I am so excited to come to you today. We're talking about misconceptions and big problems facing peri and postmenopausal cyclists. And I'm just going to hop right into it. So if you're here watching this later, put a little hashtag team replay below so we can just see that you saw it and I can answer any questions that you might have. But I'm going to just jump right into it. So, as I've been teaching and talking master classes for years at this point, but one of the biggest challenges that most people have when it comes to cycling is that they have this thought, right? Women have this thought that if I need to get faster, I need to double down on my training, right? And it turns out once you start digging into this, like there's a lot of big problems that come to the surface. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Like, what are these problems? And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you can maybe overcome them. But I want to know, like, as a woman who cycles, and I mean cycling as riding any sort of bike, you actually don't know what you don't know. And it turns out that we didn't know a lot. And y'all, I was just listening to a podcast yesterday about, they were interviewing Christine Yu, who's written a book about essentially where are we in terms of women in sports science. And she kind of came to the same conclusion, which was we don't know a lot because we've been excluded as the norm really until the last 6 years. So let me know in the audience, y'all, if you're watching this, let me know if any of this feels true, right? It seems like you're climbing all the hills day after day and not getting any faster. Or even worse, you're getting dropped and becoming less safe because you're getting dropped by yourself. Maybe you're riding longer and longer rides in an effort to hit that big century ride or cycling vacation, but it's a struggle because you're feeling exhausted all the time. Maybe you used to lead the pack of friends or your racing category, but now you find yourself slipping off the back more than you would like. Right? Okay. So maybe you're losing significant muscle mass. You can see it in the mirror, and maybe you're starting to feel weaker on the bike. Riding slower, gaining weight. Right? These are things that we can chalk up to age, but there's things that we can talk about as to how to mitigate that. Doubling down on training time. I hear this all the time. I'm doing, insert this now. I'm doing a century. I'm doing 12-day bike ride. I'm doing, don't I need to train over and over and over and over? And yeah, it's a misconception, right? Cutting calories and exercising harder loop, which leads to cravings and nighttime snacking, which leads to weight gain, which leads to then doubling down again, trying to train harder, cutting your calories, exercise harder, which leads to more cravings and nighttime snacking for most of us. And all of that is an exhausting loop. Then you feel exhausted and you stop doing anything. Menopause symptoms can affect your quality of life at any stage here, right? All of these could feel true for you at some point. So, but you do know that you're sick of feeling any or all of these things. And you want to feel like you again. And I feel like all of us, once you're essentially hitting that 35 and 40 range, you're starting to feel some of these things and you want to feel like yourself again. But there's no turning back the clock, right? We can't go back and undo time. But you want to know, well, why is like how I'm training and what used to work, like why is that not working anymore? What can I do about this? And so I just want you to know there's shouting from the rooftops, there is a better way. Like I talked about yesterday, I'm here to like get rid of that misinformation. And so in reality, I wanted to provide you a quick timeline. And I didn't see any comments yet, but if you do have any questions, leave them below. But my quick timeline is this. Y'all, you probably didn't even know there was a problem. So I'm bringing it up to you. In 1986, so for most of us, that was like 10 years ago, right? But that was within my lifetime. In 1986, the National Institute of Health had to create a policy that mandated that researchers actually include women in their studies by 1989. So up until 1989, women were by default excluded, right? After 1989, basically they were encouraged to be included, and I think if they were taking NIH money, they had to be included in some realm. But my point being, it is not your fault you don't know what to do because nobody studied this until very recently. Between 2014 and 2021, only 6% of exercise physiology studies focused exclusively on women. Y'all, that was just years ago, not decades, just a couple of years ago. And a small portion of that, 6%, are athletes over 40. So we deserve better. That study was, or that information came from the Invisible Sportswoman study. So another problem, society still holds a lot of antiquated advice as truth because women over 40 were left out from sports science until really about 2016, which is shameful in my opinion, and kind of blindsided me when I first really learned that. Most advice that we think we know is derived from Western culture studies, right? So meaning studies, sports science studies done from mostly Western culture, young, active men. And they're done with sedentary menopausal women populations. So they did study menopause really a lot, right? But most of them were done with women who never exercised, and they're, it turns out, very different from women who exercise a lot. So problems you probably didn't know existed until today, right? There were few peri and postmenopausal athlete studies were done, if any, before 2016. So I want to ask you, is everything you read about cycling and training on the internet, is that all true, right? Or is the internet overloaded with noise? I learned yesterday on that podcast that I was talking about that it takes 17 years on average for scientific findings about sports science or anything really to trickle into everyday knowledge. That's like a lifetime. That's like 2 lifetimes when it comes to athletes and training. So as a result, the vast majority of traditional cycling coaches are really about 20 years behind the science. And even myself, who's taking current science into consideration when we're creating our training programs, in 10 years, we might find out that some of the things we're doing could be better, right? So this month, I also was, actually I think it was last month at this point, one major coaching group that I belong to focuses on masters athletes, right? And I'm like, oh, here we go. We're going to learn more about what to do. The whole masters athletes like program that they had put together, even with coaching older athletes focus, was all male athlete oriented information. So again, huge blind spot when it comes to women and focusing on training. So I want to ask you, does this make you feel angry? Does like that we've been intentionally excluded because we deemed that our hormones were too challenging, right? It was too complicated to run studies. That infuriates me still to this day, and I think a lot of people as well. So y'all, I know this is going to run another longer. I would hoped these would be like 5 to 10 minutes, but I feel so feel so much about this. I'm going to make this one just a little bit longer because I want you to get like where we're coming from. So another misconception, and if you've been to my masterclass, you've seen this quote, but I had Googled like exercise programs for women over 50. And the very first thing that still pops up, I just did it today, is from WebMD. And I'll read it for you, the first bit. Walking, jogging, swimming, dance exercise, cycling, I would argue as well, are good cardiovascular exercises to try. Aerobic exercise works. The aerobic exercise works the large muscles in your body, which benefits your cardio system and your weight. Work up to getting 20 or more minutes per session, 3 or 4 days a week. Make sure you can pass the talk test, which means exercising at a pace that lets you carry on a conversation. And then strength training, which I'm happy that they talk about it, right? At least it's talked about now. Lifting hand weights improves your strength and posture, maintains bone strength, reduces the risk of lower back injury, and also helps you tone. Can we talk about toning? Oh my God, can we just get rid of that? Okay, start with a hand weight that you can comfortably handle for 8 repetitions. Gradually add more reps until you can complete 12. So I applaud their start. However, if you are here because you're interested in cycling, keep going faster, get stronger, this is, again, a good start, but there's a lot that we can do to improve on this. So my point is, this is a good start, but it is not a great start. It is telling people still, don't go too hard, don't lift too heavy, right? And that's absolutely the opposite of what you want if you want to see performance. So it doesn't have to be this way, right? The bad advice is still because we weren't studied for really until the last 6 years. And it's going to take another 15 years for it to be trickled down onto the internet and be the first thing that we see when it pops up. But I want to give you the alternative science-backed option, which is strength train with heavy weights. All right, so yes, you want to start with body weight and work your way up to 8 to 12 reps to learn the movements, But then I encourage you to get heavy because you need to keep that muscle contraction strong and keep that muscle on your body. The only way that we maintain that muscle building signal is by lifting heavy. And I shouldn't say only, but it's better use of our time is lifting heavy. All right, I'll stop there. The second is going breathless, right? So we want to go breathless to build and maintain healthy muscles and bones and also lift your fitness level. So get rid of the talk test. I mean, there is a time and place for those low intensity rides, but I want you to focus on going breathless once or twice a week. And then third, rest more. And this is the one that I want to say most women come to me with. They struggle with resting. So, and it's a big mystery, right? When should I rest? When should I train? I wanted to tell you briefly about with Margaret. So you all have heard about Margaret. She's been training with us forever. She might even be watching this right now. Hi, Margaret. And but I did want to just highlight like her improvements when she started strength training, first with body weight, then we moved to dumbbells, then she kept and TRX training, and then she continuously started lifting heavier as she progressed through the programs, steadily showing up 2, maybe 3 times a week for strength training. After the first 12 weeks, all of her aches on the bike were gone, right? She'd had neck pain, she'd had a hamstring, Achilles issues, all of her pains were gone. And that I can confidently conclude was from strength training consistently. Not only that, but she dropped her riding partners on the hills of her metric century because she was stronger, right? So lifting heavy, going breathless, super important. And we really focus on that in our training programs, whether you're working with Coach Julie or me, we focus on keeping that strategically and important for you. So misconception, another one I want to talk about, I get this all the time, is you have to double down on training and you have to cut calories to actually get faster. Now we're going to dive deeper into this tomorrow, but I just want to point out this is a big fat no. At this point in life, you do not need to double down on training and cut calories. And do you want to know, like, that actually came out of a study, from like the 50s, right? Basics, calories in, calories out, which works great for young, active men living in a Western culture, right, being studied, but it is exactly the opposite of what we women, peri and postmenopausal, need to focus on. But the patriarchy in medicine and science and exclusion of women intentionally because our hormones were just too complicated or took too long to study, right? We were excluded from all of these studies, and that failed us as an entire 50% of the population of the world. So we haven't known until very recently, and in some ways we still don't know 100% of everything. We haven't known exactly what we had to do until now, because now we're starting to actually be studied. And I think it's because women around the world are tired of putting up with, we don't know the answers to these questions, right? So we have all of the sports research that is still coming out month by month by month, and historically it's all been based on young active men. So what we thought we knew is true for a proportion of the population, but it isn't necessarily true for us. So if you're experiencing any of the 36 menopausal symptoms, ranging from anything from disrupted sleep to pain in your joints, right? We need to start shifting our training, our fueling, and our recovery to maximize our endurance and our cycling results. So I want to go deep into that tomorrow because we're going to talk about that. I'm going to leave it there. But I do want to focus on you. When you focus on overcoming these misconceptions, you're going to find results faster because you're giving up trying to chase something that was good for a young active male athlete, but not helpful for peri and postmenopausal women, right? You're letting go of these old paradigms and tuning into what actually works for you and your body. So I want you to lead the way on that next bikepacking trip, or stay in the peloton and get onto the podium in your next race. This is going to benefit your immediate community, right? You're going to show up feeling more self-confident. You're going to have self-efficacy, doing hard things on a regular basis. Those feelings of strength when you're strength training filter into every part of your life. Not only that, but it does help slow the aging process a little bit. And then also, like, you're shifting the narrative to, like, you belong as a cyclist. You're not like, oh, I have to give up my bike. I can't keep up with, X, Y, or Z. Because you're training with your body, with your hormones, with your fueling, your recovery, your training the correct way for you. And that's what I want to talk about tomorrow. All right, y'all. I was going to check in and see if you had any more questions. Unfortunately, like, it doesn't show me comments until afterwards. So I'll give you a shout out when I see it. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.